This week, it ignited. Happy Friday, friends. It is Friday in late November. It is Turkey Week coming up like next week, which means I don't know if there will be a podcast next week because it's Black Friday and like if there's a need for a podcast next week, there will be a podcast, but I'm not making any promises. I smacked the mic. It's that time of the year where the holidays are upon us. Hopefully everybody had a wonderful week. There was Ignite this week. Microsoft shipped more things for Xbox for dashboarding experiences, or I should say console experiences. Maybe I shouldn't even say either one of those because that's not either correct. Anyways, let's dive in because Microsoft had Ignite and there was a lot of agentic news So Microsoft had Microsoft Ignite, where the agentic, if you go search their book of news, I think it showed 456 times they used the word agent or agentic within their press releases for the past week, and it's a yikes. Anyways, Copilot Actions is a coming new agentic AI feature in Windows 11 that lets you describe a task you want AI agents to complete, and then it will go out and do that using Windows desktop apps and web apps. That is the thing that Microsoft has announced. We'll see. We will see how that all works and plays out, but it's coming. There's nothing you can do. And where are they going to put those agents? Of course, they are going to shove them onto your taskbar and give you these sort of interactive like widget experiences, I guess, at the end of the day. Is where they are headed with this stuff. To me, this feels more like spaghetti at the OS because they don't quite know how these things should live and evolve. So they're going to start on the taskbar, which is a natural place to do so. However, for a lot of people, it's just going to kind of be noise. These things should be kind of sort of, I think in the background is the expectation. And so the spaghetti has been laid upon the plate in front of you, and we will see where Microsoft heads with all this with Windows. I think a lot of people, myself included, are concerned, which is rightfully so, because Microsoft doesn't have a great track record for like implementing UI and things robustly and resiliently, but they're going to start playing with your taskbar. So buckle up, my friends, buckle up. So also there was a lot of other stuff at Ignite, but like to me, the Windows stuff was the most important, unless you really want to talk about Azure core services and everything else for agents, which is all fine and dandy, but yay, right? Yay. Anyways, the Windows Insider team unveiled a new website. It looks fine. It's whatever. It's a great thing. It's whatever. It shipped. Congrats on shipping. Shipping is hard, as I like to say. However, they did release a new build, and the one thing I immediately looked for is who wrote the blog post? Because previously this stuff was attached to a human, a fellow meat bag, if you will, and now we don't if you look at the blog post, we don't. Who's doing this stuff? To me, it wouldn't surprise me if this is AI generated and human reviewed or something like that. Nothing, but I don't know. They're releasing build. That stuff's still happening, but it's just written by the Windows Insider program team named Clippy. I don't know. It doesn't actually say named Clippy for anybody who's on the audio side of this, but that's where we are. And so we'll see if any personalities shine through, but I'm not really expecting much at this point. Now, Satya Nadella was not at Ignite, but however, there was a massive announcement from Anthropic, NVIDIA, in that they announced a new strategic partnership where they will spend $30 billion, this is Anthropic, will spend $30 billion dues on the Microsoft cloud, and that is now into the funnel of sales. However, NVIDIA and Microsoft, they're putting up to $15 billion back. So this is what I mean. We are in a circular flow of cash. Money is not real. It is all just made up because everybody's stock goes up. NVIDIA stock goes up. Microsoft stock goes up. I'm assuming Anthropic stock, their internal shares went up from all of this, or maybe they went down, but whatever. They're going to spend $30 billion on Microsoft Cloud that may or may not materialize because it's all just made up. It's all just funny money at this point because it's just a circular flow of cash between just a select group of companies. And eventually, the music will stop in some capacity. And then at that point, the loser is us because the market will explode. And that's just not going to be a good thing at the end of the day. Oof. Now, if you're wondering why I stopped talking there for a second, and I'm not editing this out. So as I've noted that this podcast studio is perfectly optimized. My furnace was about to turn on, so I had to turn that thing off so you guys didn't hear that in the background. You're welcome. I do it for you. Actually, not really. I do this for me just to get the thoughts out of my brains. Anyways, so there is all that. Also, Microsoft deleted a Copilot ad because this is going well. So Microsoft has been doing this influencer campaign where they've the influencers that you see on YouTube, or creators, I should say, you see on YouTube and everything else, doing like Copilot, we love you. I'm sure they're getting the bag on the back end because they better be. But anyways, there was a Copilot ad that went out that didn't do anything. Like it was the AI agent was guiding the user to improve text scaling, to increase the text size, but it was already done. It was telling him to do the thing that had already been completed. They got, what do they call it? Reader notes on X, the used to, whatever, like the little pop-up thing that says like, hey, this is actually wrong. Reader's context, I guess, is what they call the window now. Anyways, they basically said Copilot did nothing, and they didn't even catch this during the edit, and this was it was like Copilot said, go do the thing that's already enabled, and it was just a bad look. And how does Microsoft not catch this stuff? How does the marketing team not realize that the thing that they were trying to promote was looking bad and just like, nope, we're not going to do that? However, they said, screw it, we got to push it out because we need Copilot ads, and they did it, and then they got roasted as they should have, and so they have now deleted the tweet or the video or whatever else. So fun times. Now, also this week wasn't just Ignite. Microsoft had their big but they had their partner showcase where they said all these games are Xbox Play Anywhere, and there's a bunch. They showed off another like teaser, if you will, for 007 First Light. They are really pushing that and milking that all out. I'm expecting that my expectations are that they expect that's going to be a big release for them, and I hope it works out well. Anyways, they showed some of that off. However, the thing that was most interesting to me, first off, is the video is great. You should go watch it because they make fun of themselves a lot, is Vampire Crawlers. So I played a lot of Vampire Survivors. I still sometimes play Vampire Survivors. And so they've turned this into a card game in some capacity. I'm not quite sure yet. I've got to go watch this. It's coming out next year. It looks fantastic, at least if it has the same vibe and feel as Vampire Survivors that I loved. And so to me, that was the most interesting thing that they announced at that, along with the fact that, hey, the Xbox dashboard, or whatever we're calling it, the Xbox full screen experience, originally available on the ROG Ally and Ally X, is now generally available as you are listening to this to all gaming handhelds currently in market. Plus, Microsoft says they are expanding the FSE, which they call it, to more Windows 11 PC form factors through the Xbox and Windows Insider program. TLDR, you should probably be able to run this soon. And again, it's all coming together for that hybrid device because that's the way Microsoft wants it, and that's the way the market is headed, and that's the way that Microsoft is doing. So there you go. Other interesting things. So I went back in time, as I like to do with my free time, because that is what things that keep me up at night. Anyway, so Xbox put out an opening weekend tweet for Black Ops 7, and it is obvious that Black Ops 6 did a lot better at launch than Black Ops 7. The Black Ops 6 release, they said, look, #1 total players, #1 hours played, #1 total matches. And the one from this year is like, congratulations on the release, and no promotional real things to it. TLDR, Black Ops 6 had a much bigger release than Black Ops 7, and so Microsoft is now probably trying to figure out how they're going to continue to juice the numbers for the year ahead. I did finally download Black Ops 7, and I've played a little bit of it. It's fine. It's Black Ops 7. It's the same Call of Duty, slightly different environments, but guys, it's the same thing. We all know this, right? We all know it's the same thing. I have been continuing to play Battlefield 6 quite a bit. Battlefield 6 is wonderful, but Call of Duty it just scratches that itch of more arcadey than Black Ops or than Battlefield. However, Battlefield's still great. Like Battlefield, I'm terrible at flying choppers, but I love to fly choppers, and so I will continue to play both as I see fit or whatever else. And so there's other games I need to be playing. But I've got some time off coming up as long as I stop screwing around with trying to build apps, which, I keep playing around with AI, local AI. I'm trying to build, so I have Connection Explorer, the application, and that I built, and I'm trying to build local LLM support and just trying to like understand that world, not cloud stuff, keep it all on device is what I believe is a good path forward. And so I'm learning, but still not there yet to ship and or nowhere close to shipping, I should say. But I got it working. Like I got it working with local models, not Copilot plus PC models and not Azure Foundry or local Foundry models, but just truly like torching the CPU. I can get it to touch the NPU a bit, but right now it's still not there yet. So just fun experiments to keep my brain happy. So, all right, on to the questions of the week. And so always my favorite, I say it's always my favorite part because it is legitimately always my favorite part. Okay, let me scroll, kind of got screwed up there on that scroll so you guys can see some of them. Let's see here. So I always sort by newest first, I believe is what it's supposed to be. Anyways, all right. The Grader says, hi, Brad. First time asking your, first time reading your comment. Thanks for dropping one in here. I don't know how to ask questions in YouTube posts. I rarely use that feature. Well, you're doing it just perfectly fine. Question. Since the early time of Windows, we got good and bad versions of each time with XP good, Vista bad, 7 good, 8 bad, 10 good, 11 bad. So should we get a good Windows 12 next? When do you think Windows 12 will be announced? So this is a riddle that I have yet to been able to unpack because Microsoft is doing all this agentic stuff into what we originally thought that 24H2, which released last year, could have been a Windows 12, like because they started doing AI stuff and like, hey, Windows 12 is the AI OS from Microsoft, but there's a lot of complexities around marketing and getting that into market. And so we don't know when a Windows 12 is coming, but Microsoft is shoving all this agentic stuff into 11, maybe to try to figure out the spaghetti, and then once they have a good recipe, at least according to them, a good recipe, then they'll move towards like a Windows 12. Like that seemed to be potentially the expectation. I was hoping that they were going to come out and say Windows 2026. Like that's what the next fall release is going to be. As of right now, they have not said that, and so maybe we'll hear something at Build or something like that, but we don't know. We don't know. Microsoft has really changed things up lately, and so maybe I can't imagine Windows 11 is the last OS that will ever ship, and they won't ever say that after what happened, with some of the talk around 10, but here we are. N7 Defender says, how do you see a full screen experience performing on handhelds? I can't see Steam Deck users going through the hassle of installing. I tend to agree with you on Steam Deck that people are probably not going to go through the hassle because why would they, right? If you bought a targeted Steam device and your entire library is Steam, there's no reason to download and try to shoehorn that onto your experience. Like that doesn't make sense. It does make sense, I think, more so on a go forward basis than a like, hey, I have a device, unless you have a various Windows handheld, and then maybe it does. But like for Steam customers who are only on Steam, the FSE only makes sense if you're an Xbox customer. And like you have a console and you're trying to move. And so I don't think there's going to be like some mass adoption from existing community other than maybe curiosity in some capacity. Free JAC says, to try out the all new fancy AI stuff in Windows 11, is there a current Snapdragon Surface or other laptop or mini PC that you could recommend, or would it be better to wait for the next Snapdragon chips to drop? Is there an Intel or AMD proc that can even compete with the NPU stuff? So my honest opinion right now is that we are closer to that Snapdragon Elite X2. There's two reasons why you should wait for that. One, if you're just truly like, I'm just a hobbyist, I want to see some of this stuff play around. When the X2 drops, the existing stuff will continue to plummet in pricing. If you want something that's going to last a little bit longer, buying right when the X2 Elite becomes available, which I don't think we know the exact dates. We know that 26H1 is the enablement package for the driver support and kernel and everything else that's going to be needed. So it makes sense that it's a spring-ish release or sometime around there. And then you would be buying on the front edge, but you'd have the longest span cycle, if that makes sense, of the best product available. And so you kind of got to decide. I don't have any particular ones off the top of my head because at the end of the day, pricing is probably going to be the most important. If I were to be spending my own dollar dues, I would definitely be trying to be getting an ARM device. I have the version that I have that is a technical Copilot plus PC that I'm trying to develop an application on is the Intel variant. Surface Laptop 7. It's a business edition. I would not buy that one. So I would not because of the NPU, but as Doug DeMuro would say, the quirks and features of a late-gen Intel processor on the Surface Laptop 7 are wide and varied, and you never really know what's going on. There are times where the screen just dims. It's not overheating. It's plugged in. It's on the highest level performance thing. It just dims. It just dims. I don't know. I can't figure this out. It's not power saving. I can guarantee you that. I can even jack out all the pricing all the way up, or the brightness all the way up. still dimmed. It's like 50%, and it's not overheating because it's just sitting there idle. It's sitting there not fully idle, but that's one. There's other ones there's just a lot of weird quirks that happen on this latest chipset from Intel that I can't explain, that I do not see on my desktop, I do not see on other Intel devices, and that I've never seen on an AMD box that I have. So anyways, that got a little long-winded there. Pedro Hour says Pedro Hour, I believe that is. Hey Brad, hope you're doing well too. Do you think Valve will release SteamOS for consumers to install on their own PCs? If so, if they think the next Xbox will side boot SteamOS, I wouldn't be surprised. I can't imagine. Valve is such a perplexing company in the best of sort of quirky ways, where that Intel chip is like quirky in a bad way. Valve is quirky in the weird good way. So I'm struggling to know if it's actually available now, but SteamOS doesn't seem to be anything super proprietary at the end of the day. And so I could see them trying this out. Like if Valve's ambitions are not to overnight disrupt what Windows has in gaming, but like taking like a 20-year horizon on this sort of thing, like this is their moonshot, then why wouldn't they? Because it's to their benefit, because it's a chicken and egg problem, right? Developers, like, let's use Battlefield 6. I don't think Battlefield 6 is available on Steam. On Linux. If it is, then this is a terrible analogy. But if you're Battlefield 6, you don't want to build for Linux because there's no users there. If there's no users on Linux, then why would you build your game? But at the same time, to get people over to the Linux platform to support your game, you got to build the game. So somebody has to fall on that. And Valve is appearing to be that company. It's rumored that Half-Life 3 is going to be the hero title to get people to try it out, is my guess. And so, yeah, I would expect Valve at some point in the future to give it a shot. I mean, I don't think they have much to lose as long as the general broad hardware requirements are relatively easy to understand. Where it becomes hard is if SteamOS only works on a limited scope of hardware. That becomes problematic then. Logan says, Brad, no questions just this week. Just have a good Thanksgiving. You too, Logan. You have a good Thanksgiving. Assuming you're not doing a show next week, cheers. Most likely not. If it is, it'll be something because something went sideways this week, probably for Microsoft or Xbox. But yeah, not as of right now, I'm not planning to do anything on what is Black Friday in the United States. Mr. PKI says, how excited are you and the family with the Agentic OS? Let me tell you, if I say Agentic OS to my wife and daughter, I will get blank stares, just like when I say the words NPU, LLM, and Copilot plus PC, and I'm trying to make this work. They will look at me like, that's great, dear. Can you go take the trash out? Is there going to be an exciting Windows 12 or the failed Windows 8S mode? We don't know. What is this agentic stuff going to look like in Windows, and how are they going to move forward with it? These are great questions, friends. These are and the reason someone's going to be like, why do you talk about, Windows is my childhood. Right. I really enjoy Windows, and I enjoy the ability to go in there and just do stuff and tinker and play with it. And someone say, oh, Brad, you'd really love Linux. But here's the thing. I want to tinker and play with things and do it as an enjoyment, not as a necessity to make things work. If I want to edit a video, I don't want to have to go unpack all that experience on Linux. I recognize someone's going to start chiming in saying, well, Ubuntu, there are flavors of Linux that work really well. The other thing too is my day job is literally developing software for Windows and selling software on Windows. So I'm sticking with Windows. Anyways, the agentic stuff is interesting because to me it feels like they want to get over to that Windows. They want to launch Windows 12 as the first AI OS, right? Or AI powered OS. I don't know, something like that. And maybe they'll get there. Nalik Rafik says, hi Brad, Windows OS today has been more criticized than ever because of Copilot. So I would qualify that and say, I don't know if it's more criticized than ever. Maybe Windows 11, yes, but Windows 8 was by far, Windows 8.0 with no start button was more criticized than ever by anything. We know that because of what they did. Anyways, to the point where Microsoft CEO of AI tweeted that he was mind blown by the critics, and Microsoft stock continues to fall as Google surpassed it. So, do you think the shareholders are starting to lose confidence in Satya Nadella and Microsoft's AI strategy? And should Microsoft start thinking to change the course before it's too late. They're not going to change course. They have too much bound up in AI, and they're not going to miss this boom. They will not. They will slam this through as hard as they possibly can. You don't get too tied up in the stock pricing because that can fluctuate for various things. Now, Microsoft's AI CEO tweeted out that he was mind blown that the critics don't understand. Here's the thing. I actually understand why he said that, but it's also incredibly tone deaf because the reality is that right now I can go talk, quote unquote, and I mean talk like the stupid Microsoft ads, but like I can go talk to data, right? I can say like, hey, Connection Explorer example, because I know it the best. Like I can now in natural language be like, hey, how many connections are hitting my box right now, and are any of them nefarious? And like it can go and understand that and do and query and bring back data to me. Like to me, that is fascinating, and that is driven by the progress in LLMs and things of that nature. However, the things that like tweeting out, like, I don't understand why people don't care about this stuff, because the reality is Steve Jobs quote or somebody's like, the best technology is the technology that gets out of the way. Like you shouldn't have to sell the technology. You should be selling the experience, and selling the experience of like, I can talk to my computer and say, hey, Copilot, can you change the text size? Like that is not an experience worth selling. What you should be fascinated by is the fact that these LLMs work, they exist, and they are moving the progression of technology forward. That to me is fascinating. Now, granted, we're torching the earth to do this with vast amounts of compute power and GPUs and everything else, but right, progress is always a little murky and a little unknown until it kind of settles down a little bit and says, this is where we're at. And we don't even know where LLMs, like the finite, there's this line that comes down where LLMs, despite getting larger, can't get more accurate and their functionality. So we need some sort of technological breakthrough that will be a necessity because of these tools that have been developed that can be more performant and more local. That will be the fascinating part. But talking to your computer and what Microsoft demonstrates isn't so much the fascinating part. And that's, I think, what he was trying to communicate that came across somewhat poorly. So, Dark Toolbelt Plays Xbox says, question, good question. What is the one tech thing you are looking forward to this holiday season to get yourself? And he says it can be anything, a car, printer, software package, hardware, gadget, or anything else. So two things. One, I already splurged on one thing, which was a NAS. I was looking forward to that. So the NAS is up and running. Not going to go down there. I will tell you the one stupid thing that I'm probably going to get myself, or my wife will probably get me, are those wireless meat thermometers that you can put in that can now sustain it up to 1,000 degrees. And so you can put your food on the grill, put them in there, and then have it boop, boop, and it says it's at the correct temperature. You don't need to keep screwing with it. Because we make a lot of like roasted chickens, like beer can chicken, if you're familiar with that. Very much a Midwestern thing, I think, where they have to sit on the grill for 45 minutes to an hour or something like that. Or doing steaks or that kind of stuff where temperature is super sensitive. This is not something I need, by the way. People will be like, well, you can do it these very... No, the whole point of this is for the tinkering aspect of perfection. And so that is probably the thing that will land there. Because we actually bought, if nobody has a sous... If you're listening and you don't have a sous vide, get a sous vide. Sous vide is the absolute best way to make a steak. Perfect every time. So you cook it in a sous vide, which just follow the instructions, and then we have a Blackstone griddle. So I take it out of the sous vide, let it sit for 5 minutes, and then I get the griddle piping hot, and then I just drop the steak on there, naked as could be, a little bit of butter on top to help get some sizzle going, and then it crisps up the edges of the steak. You just flip it. It's on the griddle for like a minute, the steaks, and then you pull them off. And like, go get your spouse, get you a sous vide. They're not terribly expensive. That's your pro tip of the week. So if I could buy anything though, like if there was no limit on no budget, here's what I would be buying. I'd be buying a Porsche 911 GT3, not the RS, a GT3, an oak green metallic with bronze colored wheels and brown leather interior. That is the I've made it purchase. Now someone might say, Brad, why don't you want a 911 Turbo S? The Turbo S is fine. The Turbo S is amazing. They're wonderful cars. But like, if I'm buying a Turbo S, to me, that's like a daily driver, extreme hypercar, sports car, whatever the hell you want to call it. Like if you buy a GT3, that's a Saturday car, right? A Turbo S is like the hypercar you can drive every day. The GT3 is the weekend car. And so that would, Oof, that's where the mind goes. Dark Toolbot with the second question. So he's questioning. He says, my thoughts. In 1998, Microsoft got taken to court in the case considered a landmark antitrust case for browser monopoly, amongst others, that for Windows, right? We all remember, maybe many of us remember, the ballot box was at Windows 7 or something like that. Xbox runs Windows, even though Microsoft says it doesn't. Surely other browsers or stores are going to be installable on the Xbox, is basically breaking the same laws. No, so this is very different. So I believe he's saying, like, why can't I put Firefox, paraphrasing here, over onto my Xbox? Well, the Xbox is a very small product. It's like 30 million, maybe 40 million units, something like that, as opposed to the billions on the PC. What Microsoft was doing back then was not, they were artificially and just... they were stopping other browsers from basically existing. I'm paraphrasing here. Please go read into that court case, but these things are very different. Now, where it's more applicable is actually the app stores on the iOS stores, which is why you see things like Epic going after them hard, because it's like, hey, you can't install these other things, and these stores say security, but they're too big to not have alternative options. And so I don't believe that Microsoft is in any way... Chrome, Google at this point, let me paraphrase that. If this was a monopolistic practice, Chrome, Google would have to go to the court and say, hey, we should be able to put Chrome on Xbox. And then they have to make the valid argument that that is a justifiable reason to go all the way through the process. Then Microsoft would have to open it up, and they're not. And if anything, it should be PlayStation, because PlayStation is larger, or even Switch potentially. But again, these things are so small and so niche. Even 100 million units is not probably large enough to be a true monopoly for this sort of thing. Now, when you're selling 40 million iPhones a quarter, then you start to get into there. And Labars says, with the last question of the week, he says, would you get a Steam machine and install Windows on all games unlocked? So I want to get a gaming PC at some point. At one point, I'm not going to share what I'm doing yet. At one point, I said all the revenue from this channel, I was just going to put towards a gaming PC. Like, that was the intent. However, I got sidetracked by building another website, and I'm now using any revenue, which, by the way, guys, if you've made it this far, just bear with me here for a second. The number of promoted things that I got pushed this week and last 3 weeks to do during the holiday season is exceptionally depressing. Temu really, really wants me to do some sort of weird read ad, and I'm not doing that. I'm just telling you that they messaged me about it, and so did a bunch of others. And I turned all of them down for the most part. The last one I did, I think, was Ridge Wallet, because I use a Ridge Wallet. If Logitech came to me and says, hey, you want to talk about the Logitech mice, the MX Master Series, I would probably do that because I love those mice. But anyways, so the incremental ad revenue from this channel, which is not much, it's a few $100 a month. Sometimes it spikes a little higher. I've been funneling into another project, which I will show off here, because Google, for the lack of better term, or YouTube, I should say, YouTube is pressing like really hard, like, you should launch, what do they call it? Not partner programs, but your exclusive community on YouTube, like Patreon knockoff. And guys, I don't want to put videos behind a paywall. I don't want to do paywalled content. In fact, more bluntly, I don't want to make any sort of revenue dependent on advertising. I realize that that's a little ironic for what I just said, of this channel money getting funneled into something else, but like, trying to make a living, like any creator who's gone solo on YouTube, God bless them, because it's a tough thing to do, to be a creator long term, and with the shifts in the ad market and everything else, and building a sustainable life off of advert revenue is just, if that opportunity is ever in front of you, don't take it. Just please don't take it. It's just not worth it. Unless you were like huge, like a couple million subscribers or something. But like for 50,000 plus channel sub and like 10,000 audio plays or whatever it is per week, it's just not worth it. It's just not worth it. Anyway, so I'm building something, because I can't stop and help myself, that I will show off here before the end of the year, because that's where I want people to help out. Like somebody said, the question was like, what do you want for Christmas? So like, this thing I'm building is going to be community driven. And that's what I want, is for people just to contribute and help out. And so you'll see, if you've known me long enough, it's not a new idea, but I now have the technology and the means and the abilities to launch something like that. It's been driving me nuts for years that I couldn't do it, and now I can. And so that's how I've been using this. And so right now there's no money for a gaming PC, which would also be high up there, this got so far off topic from a Steam machine. But like, I wouldn't buy a Steam machine. I would just like to buy a high-end gaming PC with the full screen experience and like try to meander my way over to there, if that makes sense, if you guys know where my head is at. So there's nothing wrong with the Steam machine. Well, we don't know the price. So like, from an enthusiast perspective, there's nothing wrong with the Steam machine. Go nuts. I hope Valve does all right with it. I hope that they get what they were seeking. But from a, like, is Brad Sam's going to buy one? It's like, no, I'm committed to something else to try to build it and get it up off the ground. Not quitting my job sort of thing. This is a hobby project, just like this channel. Just like anybody who made it to here, make sure you subscribe, because the only BS on this podcast is me.